The final wish, the words came out so quietly that Steve Harvey almost missed them. Almost. But in 40 years of television, he'd learned to listen not just to what people said, but to how they said it. And the way 54-year-old William Patterson whispered those words carried the weight of a man who was carrying the heaviest secret of his life. The doctor said 2 weeks, but I haven't told Amanda. The studio fell silent, not the comfortable silence of anticipation, but the heavy silence that comes when everyone realizes they're witnessing something profound and heartbreaking. Steve Harvey had just asked a simple question about family traditions, the kind of softball question designed to get easy points and keep the energy light. He never expected it would lead to the most devastating revelation in Family Feud history. It started as another Thursday afternoon taping in Atlanta. The Patterson family from Charlotte faced off against the Rodriguez family from Miami. William Patterson stood tall at the family podium, but there was something about his posture that caught Steve's attention immediately. He moved carefully, deliberately, like someone who was saving energy for something important. His skin had a pale, almost translucent quality that spoke of long days spent indoors. But his smile was genuine, especially when he looked at the young woman standing beside him. 26-year-old Amanda Patterson radiated the kind of joy that comes from spending quality time with someone you love. She kept reaching over to squeeze her father's hand, celebrating every correct answer with infectious enthusiasm. "This is so amazing, Dad," she had whispered during a commercial break, loud enough for the microphones to catch. "I can't believe we're actually here." William had smiled at her, that kind of smile that holds back 1,000 unsaid words. "Me neither, sweetheart. Me neither." During family introductions, Steve had been immediately drawn to their dynamic. There was something special about the way William looked at Amanda, like he was memorizing every moment. "And who do we have here?" Steve had asked, approaching their podium with his trademark warmth. "I'm William Patterson, and this is my daughter, Amanda. We're from Charlotte, North Carolina." William and Amanda! Father-daughter team, I love it. What do you two like to do together? William had paused for just a moment, his hand finding Amanda's. "Everything," he had said simply. "We do everything together these days." Amanda had laughed, squeezing his hand back. "Dad's been spending a lot more time with me lately. He says I'm more fun than his golf buddies." The audience had chuckled, but Steve had noticed something in William's expression, a flicker of pain that didn't match the lightness of the moment. Now, 3 rounds into the game, that moment was about to explode into something that would change everyone's understanding of what was really happening on that stage. The Patterson family was holding their own, trailing by only 15 points heading into the 4th round. Steve was in his element, making jokes about grandmother Patterson's surprisingly competitive spirit and cousin Mike's tendency to give answers that made no sense but somehow ended up on the board. The category was things families do to make memories. It was William's turn at the podium. He had stepped forward with that same careful movement Steve had noticed earlier, like someone who was rationing their energy. "All right, William, things families do to make memories. What do you think?" William had gripped the podium, his knuckles white against the dark wood. "Take trips together," he had answered, his voice strong despite everything. The answer was number 2 on the board, worth 18 points. The Patterson family celebrated, but William hadn't tooed from the microphone. He was staring at Amanda, who was jumping up and down with excitement, and something in his expression made Steve's comedian instincts quiet down. William, Steve had said, approaching the podium, "You okay, brother? You look like you got something on your mind." That's when it happened. William looked directly at Steve, then at Amanda, then back at Steve. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but the studio sound system picked up every word. "I just want to make as many memories as possible with my daughter while I still can." Steve's smile faded. "While you still can? What do you mean by that?" William's composure began to crack. "Mr. Harvey, I haven't been spending more time with Amanda because I'm retired from golf. I've been spending time with her because I'm dying." The collective gasp from the studio audience was audible. Amanda, who had been celebrating just moments before, went completely still. "Dad," she said, her voice small and confused. "What are you talking about?" William turned to face his daughter, tears already streaming down his face. "Sweetheart, I've been trying to find the right way to tell you I have pancreatic cancer, stage 4. It's very advanced. Amanda's face went through a series of emotions, confusion, disbelief, and then crushing realization. No, she whispered. No, that's not. Dad, you would have told me. You wouldn't keep something like that from me. The doctor gave me 2 weeks, maybe a month if I'm lucky. I found out 3 weeks ago, and I couldn't find the words. The studio had gone completely silent. 200 people held their breath as they watched a father break his daughter's heart in the most public way possible. But Steve Harvey wasn't going to let this moment pass without intervention. He set down his cards and walked directly to William. Sir, with all due respect, why are you telling her this now? Why here? William looked around the studio, at the cameras, at the audience, at his daughter, who was now sobbing. Because this was supposed to be our adventure. She's been trying to get us on this show for 2 days. When we finally got selected, I thought this could be our last happy memory together. But I realized I can't pretend anymore. She deserves to know. Amanda collapsed into her father's arms, her sobs echoing throughout the studio. Daddy, why didn't you tell me? We could have what, sweetheart? Spent the last 3 weeks crying instead of laughing. I wanted you to the 1 more month of just being my happy girl. Steve Harvey had witnessed countless emotional moments over his career, but this was different. This was a father trying to protect his daughter even as he was forced to destroy her world. Behind the scenes, a producer made a decision that would define this moment forever. Keep the cameras rolling. Let America witness love in its purest, most heartbreaking form. William, Steve said, his voice gentle but firm, what can we do? What do you need right now? William looked at Amanda, who was still clinging to him like he might disappear at any moment. I need to tell her something I've been saving for the right moment. Steve nodded. Go ahead, sir. Take all the time you need. William gently separated from Amanda, taking her hands in his. Amanda, you know how you've been asking me about walking you down the aisle someday? About meeting your grandchildren? About all those future moments we talked about? Amanda nodded, tears streaming down her face. I won't be there for those moments, sweetheart. But I need you to know that every single day since you were born has been the greatest gift of my life. You made me a better man, a better father, a better human being. The studio audience was openly weeping now. Even the cameramen were wiping their eyes. But William wasn't finished. And I need you to promise me something. I need you to promise me that you'll still have all those moments, that you'll walk down that aisle and you'll have babies and you'll live the most amazing life. And when those moments happen, I'll be right there with you, in your heart, in your smile, in every choice you make that makes the world a little bit better. Amanda was sobbing so hard she could barely speak, but she managed to whisper, I promise, Daddy, I promise. That's when Steve Harvey did something that broke every rule of television production. He pulled out his cell phone and, without asking permission from anyone, started making calls. What are you doing, Mr. Harvey? William asked. I'm calling every oncologist I know. I'm calling treatment centers. I'm calling people who specialize in pancreatic cancer. Because 2 weeks isn't enough time, and I refuse to accept that this is the end of your story. The first call was to Dr. Marcus Williams at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. Steve explained the situation, described Williams' condition, and asked about experimental treatments. The conversation lasted several minutes, with Steve taking notes on the back of his game cards. The second call was to his own personal physician, Dr. Sarah Chen, who had connections throughout the medical community. Dr. Chen, this is Steve Harvey. I have a man here with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and I need you to move mountains. I need every contact, every experimental treatment, every possible option. With each phone call, the studio audience grew quieter, more focused. They were witnessing something unprecedented. A television host using his platform and connections to potentially save a life, but Steve wasn't done. After the third call, he turned to Amanda. Amanda, your father said he wanted to walk you down the aisle. Are you dating anyone? Amanda, confused by the question, nodded. Yes, sir. David. We've been together for 3 years. Do you love him? Yes, sir. Very much. Does he love you? Yes, sir. Steve looked at William. William, if Amanda wanted to get married, and if it happened to be in the next couple of weeks, would that be something you'd want to be part of? William's face lit up despite his tears. Mr. Harvey, that would be everything. Steve turned to the studio audience. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to do something that's never been done in the history of television. We're going to help plan a wedding right here, right now. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Audience members began shouting offers of help. Flowers, photography, catering, venues, but Steve held up his hand. I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm, but I've got something bigger in mind. He turned back to Amanda. Sweetheart, do you have David's phone number? Yes, sir. I want you to call him right now. Tell him to get on the next plane to Atlanta. Tell him to bring a ring if he has one. And if he doesn't, tell him not to worry about it. Amanda's hands were shaking as she dialed David's number. The conversation was brief but emotional. When she hung up, she looked at Steve with wonder. He's coming. He'll be here in 4 hours. Steve smiled, that megawatt smile that had made him famous, but this time it carried more weight than entertainment. Good, because tomorrow we're going to have a wedding. Right here in the studio. The transformation of the Family Feud studio over the next 18 hours was nothing short of miraculous. Steve's production team worked through the night, converting the game show set into a wedding venue. Florists donated thousands of dollars worth of flowers. A local bridal shop provided a dress. A photographer volunteered their services. But most importantly, Dr. Williams from MD Anderson called back with news that would change everything. Mr. Harvey, he said, we've reviewed William's case, and while his condition is serious, there are experimental treatments available. We can't promise miracles, but we can promise hope. When David arrived at the studio the next morning, he found Steve Harvey waiting for him at the entrance. Son, Steve said, I need to know something. Do you love Amanda enough to marry her today, knowing that you might not have as much time together as you hope? David didn't hesitate. Mr. Harvey, I love Amanda enough to marry her today, tomorrow, or any day she'll have me. Time doesn't change love. The wedding ceremony took place on the Family Feud stage at 2 p.m. the following day. William, despite his illness, walked Amanda down the aisle with strength that seemed to come from pure love. Steve Harvey officiated the ceremony, having gotten ordained online the night before. The studio audience, many of whom had returned specifically for the wedding, served as witnesses to something extraordinary. When Steve pronounced David and Amanda husband and wife, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. But the most powerful moment came during the father-daughter dance. As William and Amanda swayed to My Girl, he whispered something in her ear that made her smile through her tears. Later, she would reveal what he had said. This isn't goodbye, sweetheart. This is hello to the rest of your life. William Patterson lived for 4 more months, not 2 weeks. The experimental treatment Steve helped him access didn't cure his cancer, but it gave him 4 precious months to spend with his new son-in-law to help Amanda adjust to married life and to write letters for future grandchildren he would never meet. He died peacefully at home, surrounded by love, on a Tuesday morning in December. But his story didn't end there. Amanda and David started a foundation in William's name focused on connecting terminal patients with experimental treatments and providing support for families facing similar situations. Steve Harvey's decision to stop a game show and start making phone calls had ripple effects that extended far beyond one family. The episode, when it aired, became a catalyst for conversations about end-of-life care, family communication, and the importance of making every moment count. More importantly, it showed the world what happens when someone with a platform chooses to use it for something bigger than entertainment. Steve Harvey learned something that day that changed how he approaches every person who steps onto his stage. He learned that sometimes the most important moment in television isn't the one that gets the biggest laughs. Sometimes it's the moment when you stop being an entertainer and start being a human being who refuses to let a father's final wish go unfulfilled. The suit jacket Steve wore to William and Amanda's wedding hangs in his office now, not as a costume from a television show, but as a reminder of what can happen when you choose love over protocol. William's final wish wasn't just to walk his daughter down the aisle. His final wish was for her to know, beyond any doubt, how much she was loved. And in that studio, in front of cameras and witnesses, surrounded by strangers who became family, that wish came true. Because sometimes love really can move mountains. Sometimes hope really can extend beyond medical prognosis. And sometimes a game show host can become the answer to a dying man's prayer. That's not just good television, that's good humanity, and that's a legacy worth more than any game show prize could ever offer.